Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining. Super excited about being here and walking you through the project recovery process. Does it have to be so hard? My name is Bill Dow. I'm excited to be here and excited to walk you through the material today. So let's get going. So I have 30 years of hands-on experience. I'm a director of the Enterprise PMO at the University of Washington. I was at Microsoft for 15 years, Singular and AT&T Wireless for 5 years. I'm an instructor at a local college. I've been presenting and speaking around the world, several PMO symposiums, the Project PMO conference in London. I just got back from Vancouver, BC, where I presented at the Project Summit World, and I'm really excited about my YouTube channel. It's called Dow Publishing YouTube. There's about 90 videos up there. I'm making videos and putting videos up all the time. I'm a 4-time author, The PMO Lifecycle, Building, Running, and Shutting Down. Project Management Communication Tools, the Tactical Guide for Building a PMO. And back in 2008, I wrote the book, The Project Management Communication Bible. So lots of great material with that as well. So lots of experience, lots of background, and I'm really excited about sharing today. So we've got a great agenda. We're going to cover 6 big items. We're going to talk about project assessment and what went wrong. We'll look at the project management perspective and things you should be looking for. We'll look at project execution methodology. We'll look at project adoption and organizational change management. We'll look at a recommendation document, and then we'll summarize and wrap it all up, and we'll cover any questions after the presentation. So, excited to be here. Sound good? Awesome. Let's jump into it. So the first is around project assessment. So what went wrong? So when you think about project recovery and recovering a project, there's really 3 fundamental areas you're going to look at. Okay, how is the project being executed from a project management perspective? How is the execution methodology be completed from an agile, waterfall, lean, safe perspective? And then how's the adoption of the project? Was organizational change management applied? Does it still need to be applied? Kind of where are we at from that perspective? So these are the 3 areas that we're going to drive into today, but these are the 3 areas that you should be looking at when you're driving your project and trying to recover it. Okay? And so one of the questions I get asked a ton is really around the timelines of a project. And so how long does this process take? And so the recovery, you start that up, and I see it being between an 8 and a 10-day process. So for example, days 2 and day 3, you're going to look at a project management assessment, and you're looking at how they've tactically been driven the project. Days 4 and 5, you'll look at the execution. How are they doing agile? How are they doing waterfall? Day 6 and 7, you'll look at the adoption and change management, and you'll do a kind of a 2-day assessment of that. And between days 8 and 10, you'll do your project recovery. So this is where you actually take all your findings and put them into a nice document and kind of wrap that up. So now these are just estimates, of course, right? On the average project, timelines will vary depending on the access you have to the information, your team cooperation, the number of times you've been through this process, because you're going to get smarter and you're going to really drive some good questions as you do this more often as well. So this is just an average timeline. But again, it's pretty solid, and it's one that I've used before, and so I feel good about offering that 8 to 10 day range. So let's jump into it. So the first section that we're going to talk about is how well is the project being executed, right? From a pure project management perspective. So what's the hygiene of the project? Do they have risks? Do they have issues? Do they have status? Schedules, right? How is the methodology of the project being developed? And how engaged are the customers? Are they getting what they need? Are you removing roadblocks, right? What's the customer engagement from a project management execution perspective? Change management, we're going to talk about that later, but where has that been in the project management execution? Is it a priority? How important is it to the project manager, to the project team members? Right, where is organizational change management in the life of the project management execution, and where has that been? And again, we talk about that coming up. And then what about other areas, right? What, not enough budget, not enough resources. So when you're asking all these questions, you're really diving through and getting a great feel for the execution of the project. Now, I got a quick story. I've done this across multiple PMOs, especially when I take over a PMO. The projects aren't necessarily in trouble, but this is a great way for me to understand how the project managers in my PMO are executing their projects. And so I dive deep. What are your risks? What are your issues? What are your schedule? And I can very quickly see, after doing this for 30 years, I can see how well a project manager is executing or not executing the project. Now, if I don't have 30 years and I need a little help with this, what I've done, and I've documented in Chapter 17, is I've built a project audit form. And so in this audit form, we basically say, do we have a charter? Do we have change control? Do we have governance? Do we have a human resource plan? Action logs? Yes or no? Some comments about it, and I give them a score. So it's really around going through initiation and planning and executing and really understanding how they're driving the project and whether they're capturing all the key components of project management execution. And so with that, you're going to have a score. And based on the score and based on the results, you put an action plan in place to address those issues, right? Not all areas of project management are needed based on the size and the complexity of the project, right? But most of them are. But by performing this audit, you've got a great starting point. Right? So add all your recommendations and all your findings into the project recovery recommendation document, and you'll have a good feel for how this project's being executed. Now, I've got another quick story I want to tell you. I've done this across several PMOs, these audits, and you would think that the project managers would absolutely hate them, but actually they love them. And why do they love them is because they know exactly what's expected of them on the project. They know exactly they need a risk log and an action log and an issue log. So, audits tend to be scary. Audits tend to be, overarching. But actually they're not, because a lot of project managers like to know exactly what their expectations are. And so when you give them that audit spreadsheet, you're fulfilling that. Does that make sense? Yeah, excellent. Well, again, we'll cover questions at the end, but I just want to make sure you guys are tracking with that. I've done it before, and it is very, very valuable. Let's jump now into project execution methodology. So when we think about the execution methodology, we're thinking about waterfall and agile and lean, construction, research. So across the board, the various methodologies and how are they being executed. So when you're looking at methodologies, you're diving into these four big points. What methodology are they using? Is it working? Are all key players playing their parts? Right? Is it defined and is the team following them? So are they using waterfall? Are they using agile? Are they using a version of both? Right? These are the things that you're going to look for. Are there checkpoints in place? Do these checkpoints allow the team to stop, the customers to stop and go, this is exactly where we're at, and this is how we want to drive forward or not drive forward based on what they're finding? Are the roles and responsibilities defined? Do we have all the team members? Is there still people that we need to hire? Is everyone pulling their weight, right? What's the engagement of the customer in the project execution methodology? So what's the role of the customer in waterfall, in agile, in research, in construction? Are they playing a big role? And is that helping you or causing problems on the projects, their lack of involvement? What are the team issues, right? What are the major problems occurring on the project? Have we captured team members' concerns on the project? And what's their current state? What are their common themes? Is the team still norming, forming, storming, right? A lot of teams go through that in the initial stages and then work themselves through that. What are the roadblocks and issues around teams, right? So what's the situation that's causing the project to be recovered? Right? Is that the perception of the reality, or what's really going on from an execution perspective? Right? And so I think that's a key component. So every team operates differently, right? Which is 100% acceptable. However, when you need to look for failure points in those operations in order to understand how to turn the project around. Right? And so maybe they're not nailing it, knocking it out of the park from an agile perspective. Or maybe they're trying water scrum. or whatever version of both Agile and Waterfall, which is fine, but maybe it's the methodology that's causing the major concerns on the project. And as a third-party person, this is your chance to hear directly from the team members. You don't have to underestimate what the team's saying. You look for themes, you look for consistent messaging, and then make your plan on how you're going to move the ball forward. Again, add all your recommendations and findings into the recovery document. So what you're seeing from an Agile or a Waterfall or a research or construction, add all those into the recovery document. That's going to help you really understand how you're going to move this project forward and recover the project from the situation it's in now. The third step is around adoption and change management, right? And so this is really around understanding where is change management and project adoption in this recovery process. So when you're looking at that, you're saying to yourself, hey, what methodology are they using? I've been using ADKAR and the ProSci methodology for years, but there's other methodologies out there. When did they start that change management in their life cycle of their project? Did they start at the very end? They started from the very beginning? When did they start, and did that play a role in why this project needs recovering? Are the customers' adoption rates low because they don't see value in what you're producing? Right? So how connected are the customers? Does the project manager know the stage to which the customers are at in the org change management lifecycle? Every customer is going to adopt at different rates. And so you as a project manager, you need to understand where the customer is at so you can really bring them along that journey. So because some customers will jump right in and be very excited, and some customers will take a lot longer, you need to understand that. What's the mandatory versus optional? So does leadership say you must do this, you must use this project? Or is the leadership a little bit like, you can do it or not? Right? Based on where your leadership mandate is on the adoption of the project, that's going to be a critical component on how you adopt and change your change management strategy. So the leadership, thou shalt do it, you got to do it, you got to do it. Or the leadership goes, you can do it if you want. That's really going to drive adoption. I've seen that for years, and that plays a key role. Around adoption, what are the other risks and issues and roadblocks occurring around change management? Change management methodologies take a very serious sets of steps to take a customer through that whole process. And so if you're not executing that change management in a structured and organized manner, you're going to see some low adoption rates. I've got a great story with that. So again, I've been looking at change management between the 3 and 5 year range. Got myself certified from ProSci. I absolutely love the ADKAR model, but I wish I would have known that 30 years ago and not 5 years ago, because I've seen low adoption rates for a long, long time. And now when I look at it and I look back at all the projects and all the projects I've been involved in, change management is a critical part of that. So we're seeing that, right? So adoption and change management is a key point to project failures. We see that in survey after survey, and we also recognize that PMs are not recognizing that fact. They're not seeing the key to adoption and change management, and we're seeing those failure points because a lot of that sits on the shoulders of the PMs. If organizational change management is not executed at the beginning of the project, you're going to see low adoption rates. Because what has happened is you've not got the customers to understand what's in it for them. And once you get the customers over that hurdle, it's going to make a big difference in your adoption of your projects. But until you do that, and that's why you got to start at the beginning of the project and do it throughout the life of the project, but until you can get them over that hurdle, they're going to struggle. Again, from a change management perspective, add all your recommendations, all your findings into the project recovery document. So that's that document, right? We've told you throughout the process, keep adding, right? And so at the end, you've got this document where you put all your information. So here's your table of contents. You've got 4 main sections: your project management section, your notes, and your findings. Your execution, project execution, your waterfall, your agile, You put all your notes, put all your documentation in there. Your step 3 is your adoption and change management. What's occurring? What's happening from an adoption perspective? And then the last section is your final findings and recommendations. This is where you put all your findings. This is where you put your recommendations on how you're going to turn that project around. So let's think about that for a sec. So you've been hired to come in and turn a project around. You've been asked from another organization to come turn that project around. You're not just going to be able to turn the project around. You're going to have to go through that 10-day cycle to come up with this recommendation document to say, here's what I would do to turn the project around. So be very clear. You got to do the recommendation first before you can actually execute. And you're just going to need this nice, clean, easy to use document to document all your findings. So as we summarize, right, most project recovery processes are fundamentally broken down into 3 areas: project management execution, development methodology execution, waterfall, agile, research, whatever, and organizational change management. Projects often need recovery for the simplest of reasons. Team members often don't see those simple reasons because they're so deep into the weeds. They're so deep into the details, right? But what I say is use this simple but effective process to review the key areas and document your findings for leadership to decide next steps and how to turn your project around. Again, you're going to do that with that project recovery document. Make sense? Excellent. I put in chapter 17 in my book, The PMO Lifecycle, Building, Running, and Shutting Down, I put that project audit and all the information and details around that. It's up on Amazon today. Highly suggest you get a copy of that. Here's my information, Build Out with Dow Publishing LLC, up on LinkedIn, my website, my 3 books are up there, Twitter, Facebook, that type of thing. Definitely check me out online. And what I'll do now is I'll take questions. So we'll walk through. I want to thank everyone for attending. I'll stop the recording and take the questions offline. Thank you all for attending. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and I'll see you online.